So good evening, everyone. Welcome to the planning board meeting for Thursday, August 23rd, 2018. This meeting is being recorded for future rebroadcast on Waka TV. I'm going to go through a brief walkthrough of tonight's agenda. So at 7:15, we have a topic continued from August 9th, discussion regarding non-payment of certain other municipal charges by Magunko Transit LLC. Also on the agenda at 7:15, we're continuing a discussion regarding the site plan review for a proposed mixed-use structure at 128 Main Street. Also on the agenda for 7:15 is a continued discussion around the site plan review for a proposed solar installation in the Rail Transit District by Ashland Solar LLC, also known as Citizens Energy. And then at 8 o'clock on the agenda, we have a continued discussion regarding the site plan review for a proposed brewery and tap room at 40 Cherry Street. And then the final item on the agenda was a proposed discussion around 81 West Union Street, where the applicant had submitted a plan modification, but the applicant chose to cancel that request. So that item is on the agenda, but there's nothing to discuss. So before we dive into the first topic, I just would like to acknowledge Josh Chase, who was the assistant town planner here for 2 or 3 years? 2 years, whose last day was today, and he's not here to hear all this, but he kept us all on the rails after Nate's departure, and before Sheila got here, and overall was a great guy, and just want to say that we wish him well in his future endeavors. He's got a role as a
Town planner in Westboro.
head town planner in Westboro. So that's it. So it being 7:15, I would invite town council to update us on this matter. The first
Sure,
item on the agenda.
so you want to open the continued public hearing of Magunko Transit LLC to determine the remedy under the imposed, under Chapter 40, Section 57.
So I need to motion that, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Please.
So I make a motion to continue the public hearing of Magunko Transit District LLC to determine the remedy to be imposed under GLC 40, Section 57.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So at the last meeting, the board opened this hearing, which is a two-step process. The first step is to determine whether or not the municipal charges are owed. And then, once you make that determination, what the remedy would be relative to those municipal charges if, in fact, no payment is received. In that instance, the board did make the determination that the municipal charges were owed. That amount was $799,474.10. You requested that we provide the amount of attorney's fees related to the development agreement that would be related to collecting those funds. That took the amount up to $810,749.60. We provided you a letter indicating that, as well as a letter to Magunko, so they knew about it as well. Since that time, I want to back up. When this first came up in June, the Magunko agreed in a written agreement to resolve the issue in a particular way prior to the next hearing. So we entered that agreement. However, it contemplated an additional agreement which Magunko was not willing to enter into. So we opened the hearing last time to make this determination, which you did. We continued the remedy section because it was the town's understanding that, and the Board of Selectmen had actually accepted the possibility of a payment plan relative to those municipal charges. The town has been very clear about what the terms of the payment plan would be, particularly very clear in the last 24 hours. And we don't yet have those agreements signed and executed. We have a reason to believe that they will be. And so our request is, it's my understanding that the board probably will not close out the site plan review for Lot 3, the landfill solar cap tonight, that it probably won't be closed out because of the written decision until your first meeting in September. If that's the case, and trying to resolve this again, the town would request that the board continue the remedy discussion until that continued hearing for the solar facility.
Okay. Thank you for that update. Just to allow for any discussion, you guys have any reaction or things that you would like to share on this topic? Okay. So,
You need a motion to continue it to your next meeting.
so I make a motion to continue the hearing on do you want me to read, do I need to read the whole thing?
No, you can say the Magunko Transit District, Chapter 40, Section 57 hearing.
Okay, so I make a motion to continue the public hearing of Magunko Transit District LLC to determine the remedy to be imposed under GLC 40, Section 57,
To a date and time certain.
to a date and time,
So what date?
September 13th is our next meeting.
to September 13th, 2018,
7:15.
7:15 PM.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The vote passes 4-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank
And
you.
perhaps I'll see you again. Maybe not.
Okay.
All right.
So, the next item on the agenda was was intended to be a continued discussion of the site plan review. Yeah, I'm just gonna talk
Oh,
through it
okay.
for so everybody understands why. So, the next item on the agenda was a continued discussion regarding the site plan review for 128 Main. The applicants requested we continue this topic to our next meeting, which would be September 13th, 2018. Why don't we put that on the agenda at 7:15, assuming the board will vote to continue. Do I hear a motion to continue?
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion continued passes 4-0. Okay. So, moving on to the next item, is our continued discussion for the proposed solar installation. So, let you guys come up. Yes. We just continue on to it?
Okay. Is, Pat confirmed? All right, so-
No, that's just fair.
No, I was not clear. I thought we were gonna.
What did you want to do?
Just let Silver.
And then do?
Yeah. It's continued.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just spread out three.
I apologize to, I didn't, understand what Chili wanted to do with that, so.
Yeah, so we're
The-
continued.
There was intended to be a discussion regarding it tonight. The applicant appealed to us, very directly that they really want to be present for the discussion.
Yep.
And so, it was very last minute kind of info that they felt very strongly about being present, so, yes.
Oh, look at that.
Good.
Well, it works out.
Yeah. I appreciate you being here, I'm sorry to
Yeah,
have you.
yeah, we do
So-
appreciate it, thank you.
Maybe we'll be doing it on the 13th, right?
The 13th, yes, for sure.
September 13th now is the
And-
day that, and they're gonna be here, right?
And I definitely would really
appreciate your,
value your input in this.
You did receive our letter dated June 4th of our initial review of the
Yes.
property? Okay.
Yeah, and we,
If there was missing information that we'd love to see again,
Yeah,
so,
yeah, so we'll put together a complete package so people can review it.
okay, great.
thank you guys.
Thank you so
Apologies
much.
again, thank you.
for coming out.
Sorry, guys.
Now you have that 10-mile drive home.
No.
Great. I'm Emily Byrne with Citizens Energy here on behalf of Ashland Solar, Landfill Solar LLC. With me tonight's Jerry Efron, counsel, and Brian Huntley with Ty and Bond. We don't have a lot of items. We didn't bring a presentation because we're really just following up on a couple outstanding items. Namely the latest response to Green Environmental's comments, the concerns about Array 2 and the contamination, and a decommissioning surety for the portion of the landfill that will not be covered by the EPA DEP financial surety mechanism. So basically for Array 2. I will let Brian Huntley talk in more detail about those items.
Sure, thank you. Again, I'm Brian Huntley with Ty and Bond, and I think I can be fairly brief as well, that I just wanted to go through that we received some comments from Green Environmental on behalf of the Planning Board. We responded to all those comments on the 16th of August through Sheila, through the board. I believe, based on an understanding from Sheila, that Green hasn't finalized their response to our comments, but their response to it basically was that we've addressed their concerns, with the one exception being that we needed to show a location for the intended soil and bark mulch debris, so there's no net export of soils off the site, which I actually forwarded a figure to Sheila earlier today, and I'm glad you have copies, because I also realized that I forgot to plot one full size to bring. But essentially, the intention is to locate it along the, and I'm gonna get the orientation wrong, the southwest, kind of along the fence, for it to remain on the site adjacent to the array, but essentially to provide a little bit of a berm, as well as just a location for these materials to be located so they don't provide any input to stormwater flows. Excuse me, I apologize. Beyond that, I can certainly go through any of the other issues that were raised, but I think they were closed, and it's, sorry, go ahead.
No, can I ask a question about
Absolutely.
The disposal area? So, to be clear, you anticipate using the bulk of the material as chipping as your kind of, what do you call it?
Erosion control?
Yeah, mulch layer
Yep.
sort of underneath all the panels.
Correct.
So, to some degree, this area should not have that much
We-
material in it.
Correct.
Okay, and, yeah, so I think the request was, if later on you needed to clean out some of these basins or something like that, this would, that's
Yes.
what the area is for,
Yeah.
not really for the initial disturbance.
Right. I do think that there could be some, depending on the magnitude of the chips that are on site, that it may make sense for this area to be some type of a berm. And we located here, so it's outside of the footprint, it's outside of the array itself, but it's in an area that's accessible. And also, we included the note on there that for any sediments that need to be cleaned out of the traps or anything on the site, that's an area that they would be located as well, because the intention is that there's no net export of any materials off the site.
Now, prepping this site, what sort of, how many, I mean, what are you gonna generate cubic yardage wise, do you know? Is there, are you gonna grub it out and cut all the topsoil and subsoil out? or-
No, the topsoil and the subsoil aren't staying. Essentially, what's going to happen is the trees are going to be cleared, and the trees are clean, so they'll probably be either chipped and hauled off-site or used as log length, depending on what the material is,
How about the stumps?
The stumps are going to be grubbed, and they're going to be ground or chipped on site, depending on whether they use a tub grinder or what they have, and that material will all stay on site. But the actual soil and subsoil, it's intended to be minimally impacted, only where the stumps are pulled, and then minimal grading just to basically fill that in and create a uniform surface.
Yeah.
There's no proposed
Just
contour
not
changes.
seeing, I have no idea what,
Yep, no, it's very actually quick and fairly minimal. It's not like there's truckloads of material coming off or truckloads of, soil coming on. It's basically just cleaning the stumps out of here, and in this case, like I said, we're gonna grind the stumps on site, and that material will all stay on site. So any soil that is commingled in with the stumps will remain on the site and will stay on the site.
how big is this area? I really don't have any dimensions, is it Is it-
That is,
I-
what do we say, 6 acres?
I think it's approximately 6 acres that we're clearing there, yes. Yep.
Okay. So it doesn't take much to generate a lot of material in 6 acres, that's a big area.
Again, we're talking about, just below grade, essentially, just the stump. So yeah, there is a fair amount of material that's gonna be coming out, but as Sheila indicated, the intention is that, a less than 3-inch layer of this chip material can remain on the surface, that vegetation will eventually emerge through and we can seed through. It's kind of, if it's greater than that, is what we're talking about this location, to be able to generate a small berm in that area. It's a place that the material will stay on site.
So, the red, just to make sure I'm fully getting this, the red band in this picture you provided us, is proposed storage of the chips that are produced on site,
Correct.
and they're intended to be there till
Until they decompose and become part of
permanently
the soil, right.
replaced there.
And it's also a place where any sediment that is collected in those basins could be removed for the entire life of the project, just so we have an area on site that's away from the wetlands, that this can be stored. Typically those, if there is anything that needs to be cleaned out of them, it's gonna be a pretty high organic soil that's used, that would revegetate fairly quickly. So that's the idea of having a defined area on the site for that to be located.
So when you need to grade for the flat spots for the ballast, is there gonna be any cut and fill to get a rough level before you bring in the gravel for the ballast?
What will be done is when the stumps are removed, the holes that are left behind from the stumps will essentially be rough graded, likely with a grading blade on an excavator or something like that. There's not a wholesale change in contour performed. It's basically taking the existing soil and then smoothing out the rough spots, knocking down the highs and filling in the lows. And then
They have to be level.
correct, they don't need to be level,
that's-
Slope and everything.
Exactly.
Because the
Level
panels
out.
can undulate with
You just have to
the
make it so
terrain.
it's not like,
Each panel needs to be flat, right?
no.
No,
Nope.
no,
Nope.
not at all.
Yeah,
The
go up
panels
side
are,
of the
there's
hill,
tolerance
or
in the racking
they
for there
mount
to
it on
be,
there. They mount the mounts on there.
Okay, all right, so
Make
it
it
doesn't
even.
have to be level where it sits?
no,
No.
Ah, okay.
no, it does really follow the contour.
Oh,
So
okay.
we, this system will undulate.
It can't be a bunch of grooves and ditches and stuff, but it can be very
It needs to be
hilly.
a
Yeah.
uniform
Yeah.
sloped,
Yeah.
can be
There
sloped.
can
And that's
be very
the
hilly if
gravel.
you see them.
Right.
They put them on, they go right up and down the side of the hill.
Yeah, typically less than 10% is what the requirement is for a ballasted system. So, and I guess that actually does kind of lead up to, the next point here, if there are questions, go ahead.
I did run it by really quickly, our peer reviewers, and they want to look at it, the location a little more closely.
Okay.
Because they're concerned about interfering with the water flow. But I think Gene and Tony can work it out.
Yep,
probably.
agreed. All right, so the next item is that, one day last week, I believe it was, we actually went into Boston and met with EPA and DEP, with Lisa Thuat and,
Dave Buckley.
Dave Buckley, sorry. And we discussed a lot of the history out there, because I know one of the biggest discussions that we had at the last hearing was about the soils and the materials that are under, in the Array 2 area. And their anecdotal discussion was that, in the 80s, when this project started as a Superfund site, or even prior to that, there was, a level of research done that defined exactly where the soils are, where the contaminants are. There was a groundwater study that was done that determined, the direction of flow. And their indication is that it's because of all of that research that this portion of the site is not part of the Superfund site, not part of the remediation or the remedy or the capping. That said, they weren't able to put their hands on any soil samples or any historic information, that dates back 30 or 40 years or whatever it was. So I think in hearing, what the board's concerns were, as well as finding kind of where we are, and at the impasse with the ability to do any additional testing, we've kind of moved forward already that we're proposing a ballasted system on Array 2 as well. We've already been in discussion with Tony about the stormwater impacts that are associated with this. We're finalizing a memo that I think will be in his hands. If it hasn't already gone out, it
Tomorrow morning.
should be tomorrow morning, that basically gives some updated calculations to show exactly what the changes are to go from a driven system to a ballasted system. And you know, from a high-level point of view, we've already essentially over-designed the site with the idea of this retaining the water and infiltrating where it was before. So without any material changes to the project, we can meet all of the DEP stormwater standards and your groundwater recharge volumes with what the design was already. And that will be submitted to the peer reviewer, which is essentially for the Conservation Commission, who are issuing the stormwater permit. But I just wanted to raise it for your information as well. So I, you know, hopefully that kind of, you know, puts a check in that box and moves us off of the discussions about the additional soil sampling, you know, in concert with the fact that it's going to be zero export. The intention is to have a tracking pad on site, to have education for the contractors that anytime a tracked machine is moved off the site, they need to take the dirt off, brush it clean. You know, I'm not going to go as far as pressure washing because that has a whole other realm of issues from, you know, pressure washing equipment. But I think that, you know, with a good educational and management system for the contractors, we should be comfortable that it will be a zero export project.
Okay.
Questions on that, I guess?
I mean, I appreciate you guys kind of proactively looking at and going to the pad mount for the second array. You know, we both were making our case at the last meeting, and I appreciate that.
Yep.
I
Great.
did.
Did it effectively.
It'll be, in the long run, it'll be better.
Oh, I mean, any other comments, gentlemen?
All right, and I
That's
think,
it.
That
I'll let you take.
that red
Nope.
clean out berm thing you're talking about,
Yep.
doesn't interfere with any of the landscaping or anything, that's just. an
Nope,
open
nope,
area.
and that's another reason that it was located there. So it's actually kind of the furthest away from the road, so it shouldn't have any impact at all on either the vegetation that will remain, or if there's any additional vegetation that needs to be installed based on, you know, what we proposed previously, so.
So, I mean, from the perspective of beginning to, are we getting into the draft decision stage, Sheila,
Yeah.
on this?
One more item, which is the decommissioning surety for Array 2.
Oh, yeah.
So here's the
Okay.
decommissioning estimate prepared by Ty and Bond.
Thank you.
Thanks for the steak over earlier, Sheila.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. So I'm happy to talk through this. If you have questions, go into as much or as little detail as you want. But, I mean, essentially, we looked at all of the major items, all of the major components out there, and from a, excuse me, disconnecting, decommissioning, and then basically removing, hauling off-site. What we didn't include here is any value from a recycling point of view, but what we basically did is we assumed that since, you know, nearly 100% of the project out there will be a recyclable type product, whether, you know, the racking is all steel, there's a lot of glass in the panels, the copper wiring, any aluminum wiring, whatever the wiring is, all, you know, in today's world has very high value, that we essentially have assumed that there's no disposal cost associated with those materials, because right now, they actually do have a pretty significant scrap value. So to be somewhat conservative, we took the approach that it won't cost to get rid of them, but we aren't taking the credit of the value of them if we sold them today.
Against the cost, yeah, and netting it, and not netting it.
Correct. We actually do have estimates from, relatively local
Demolition.
demolition contractors that essentially show that in today's value, they would go in and they would take this job, completely decommission it, restore the site for net zero because of the value of the scrap metal today in
That's
today's market.
value.
Right.
Yeah.
Recognizing it's a commodity, we wanted to be, you know, somewhat conservative to give you kind of a level of, you know, we know that there's fluctuation. We know that copper will always have value. We know that steel will always have value. Exactly what it is, I think, depends on our forefathers and what kind of policies they come up with.
Wow.
So, it just.
Deep.
I just want to, so just to make sure perfectly clear, so this is an estimate an estimate of future cost to decommission the equipment, and this is used for purposes of setting the surety bond value.
Correct.
Correct.
For
That
array
escalates
two,
over.
right,
Yes, for array 2.
For array 2 only.
right.
Now on this, do you, remove all the gravel and everything too?
I believe that there's a,
As much as you can. I mean,
there's a
not
line
really-
item in there for,
Says site restoration, excavating access road. Removal of fence.
yep, this is essentially to remove everything on the project, yeah. It's removal of the gravel for the access road, restoring the site. We've assumed that there are some areas that might even require some additional loam and seeding on the site. We carried, erosion controls because there are some wetlands out there. We tried to make this a soup to nuts. There are actually a couple of components in here that we'd be bringing an electrician to actually disconnect and decommission the electrical equipment itself. Once the equipment is dead, the approach is more along the lines of laborers, excavators, small machines to essentially, pull, load, haul out the material and restore the site.
Now, this would be, the town's cost to decommission it, or?
This is for the bond, so if they don't do it,
The value of the
And
bond,
we
if
have,
we end up having to do it, if
We
they
can
didn't
do
do
it.
it,
because that's the-
there would be a bond
to
in the
have it,
amount
yeah.
of $52,000.
so that. But that's what we're doing, that's what it's for, so we can figure a value of if they just left, something happened,
I think there might be,
anything.
no, I think there
in
might
20
be
years.
some holes in this one, but no offense, but as far as costs that we would probably see, I've never seen loam sold for $4 a yard. It's in the 20s.
That's a cubic yard. This is for a square yard.
Oh, okay.
This assumes a square yard of impact at, 3 or 4 inches thick. So, yeah, it's broken out slightly differently the way we calculated it here. So it would be far fewer, we've essentially assumed that 10% of the entire area would require additional loaming and seeding. So essentially, as you go through the majority of the site wouldn't require anything because when you're removing it, you wouldn't have that much impact. The idea is that there's a small areas as you go back through, where you're tracking or where you've removed equipment from that would require this additional loaming and seeding.
So what does breakup equipment pads mean? Does that mean like,
They're concrete pads. It means there's an excavator on site that would, that would break them up and then load them in a truck so they could be taken off site to be ground and recycled.
this includes the cost of removal, the trucks, the whole,
We didn't include that because we're carrying that as part of what we're calling the recycling cost of those materials, or the recyclable value of those
but
materials.
nobody's gonna pay you for that concrete, will they?
The concrete, once recycled, has a value as a processed gravel material, yes. And we've carried all those materials as an average of, not carrying the trucking for them, because, when you're looking at the steel, it's a significantly higher value, certainly than the concrete is.
Right.
But once it's crushed and processed, the concrete does have a value at, let's call it $15 a ton or something like that as a processed gravel from any of your, local recycling yards where you could buy processed gravel that's a clean processed concrete.
Okay.
But they're
The lot.
gonna charge you to make that recycled material, and then they're gonna sell it back to you. I think
defer to
the
you on
cost,
that one.
I think the cost would
It's
be
$1,200.
significantly higher than this. I do.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of pads. It's 6 acres of, it's not 6 acres of panels, but that's a lot of pads.
It's gonna be,
To haul all those
it's gonna be
pads out of there
very,
and dump
it's gonna be a
trucks.
lot more expensive than that to do it. I'll tell you that much right now. We should maybe get our own estimate on that.
Yeah, we can do that.
So I think it's gonna probably be well in the hundreds, or well over 100, 150, 200. I do.
That is not what we have. That's very high for a just under 2 megawatt system, so it's going to,
That's what I do. So.
Then I guess that said,
We should get our own estimate.
would you agree that there's a reasonable value in the recycled products as well that could be subtracted out? If we're looking at a high-end value on the removal?
I don't know how much steel there really is in a solar array. There really isn't that much, right? It's light. It's all light metal. You got what? You got some items?
It's gonna be stanchions and then a racking. So I can come up with the actual tonnage. We have all these numbers from previous projects, so I can put those actual numbers together.
So the only thing
So,
that would be number one steel would be the,
the rack itself, right?
not even, probably just the, is that even angle iron, the rack, or?
It's stamped, probably 11 gauge stamp channels.
I mean, House Street's like 1.9 megawatts, wouldn't there be like an equivalent proposal from that we could look at?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. Now, that was ballast
45,000,
mounted
right?
too?
Yeah.
It's on concrete
45,000.
pads, right?
For House Street?
For House Street.
That's a good
House
point.
Street
It was
75,000.
75.
75
Yeah, I
would
mean,
be a struggle, I think.
I appreciate the fact that you didn't deduct from the value, the recycled value of that, so I'm not, I appreciate the straightforwardness there, and, I certainly, we're not looking to mix that, but, I just think we just gotta make sure that it covers, that it would cover.
Understood.
So, yeah.
And I do also want to, say it again, that this assumes that the entity goes completely belly up and walks away, and that the town has to do it, which there's certainly no intention. It is on private property. There's a lease agreement in place between the developer and the owner of the property, so you are a number of steps removed from, needing to go out there and do that. But I do,
At that point, yeah.
Plus, we're a long way down the road from this being decommissioned. So the costs are gonna inflate
Well, they did some
drastically.
inflation
like-
on the final one, page 2, they added in some.
yeah, we carried a 1.5% escalator every year over year, which varies.
A little bit higher, but,
So, like union electricians
and then
probably
you
go a
add in.
little higher than
property owner,
1.5% a year,
which is
no?
good, so it makes
I don't know what
Usually
electricians go up for, but
3% cost of living increase usually typically in a contract.
Well, we also have to,
But that's just your labor cost, there's a lot of other costs.
we also have to remember too that it's being held up because the owner, so we can't rely on the owner doing it, right?
nor are we relying on the owner. This is between us and you here too.
Yeah,
so,
no,
yeah.
I'm
just
not
saying
trying
if-
to.
This
If
is
the
a-
worst case scenario and it went belly up,
That
it
wasn't the
goes
point.
goes to the owner.
You misunderstand the point under the lease. We have the same obligation under the lease.
Yeah.
That was the point. In other words, part of the legal obligation under the lease, it's not the landlord cleans us up. We clean
But,
it.
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
if
no,
the
I get
company
that.
went belly up,
That
the reason
line.
why we have this is
I understand
because
the reason for
everybody's not
surety.
agreeing to doing what they're supposed to.
Of course.
At that time, which we're not saying we need to do it, but
You could also sell
I get
this
it.
too, right? Like you
Could.
could sell
They
this off
could.
to somebody 10
You
years down the road
certainly
if you
could
want
have
to.
been.
I just want to remind you, Citizens has been around since 1979,
Yes, we
continuously
understand.
operating, so.
We're not
Full,
the-
full
trusting
yeah.
respect to that, but
Yeah.
in our position and the role the job that we have to do for the town, we can't
yeah.
we lean on that.
This
say it's gonna be
is
okay.
for the worst case scenario happening. So the reason why we have a bond is because of the worst case scenario, so we have to say, what if the worst case happens, so.
So what,
I
just
don't
for
think
like
we'll-
clarification, what happens
What happens to
at the end of the 20 years and you find that maybe there's like a few more useful years left
Do
of
that.
We have rights of extension under the lease.
I actually just listened to a webcast today on solar panels and what's happening to them over the cost of, over the time period that 20 years, 2050. So there's definitely, Europe already has recycling plants in place to break down these panels. There's actually a lot of silver in the panels. I actually learned a lot today. There's a lot of, there's basically methods that are being moved and processes being pushed by like the renewable energies companies and SEIA, the solar energy renewable industries, to be able to manage the amount of waste from these panels in 50 years. So efforts are already underway to put processes in place to manage that.
Now, was that factored into the cost here, or is that,
That's sort of a general high level.
but I mean, that's gonna be a potentially a huge expense to get rid of those panels, right? Possibly?
Well, the
Should-
salvage
should
value.
something go wrong and Citizens no longer be in operation or whatever might happen. But, should the town be responsible for recycling those panels, there'll probably be a big cost associated with that. I don't see that in here anyway.
I think it's conjecture to some degree, and I think that if this system were decommissioned
No one's gonna take it
tomorrow,
away.
they would actually have value to be reused or to be used somewhere else.
Tomorrow
So-
they would.
And in-
Now the technology will be.
Well, the technology does change, absolutely. So there's no question about that. But the degradation of the panels, we calculate approximately 0.5% per year. So at the end of 20 years, the output from these panels should be, approximately 90% of what it is on day one. So from a value point of view, if you're looking at, a used product versus a new product, it's a lower tech product, but it should still have value, we believe, at the end of the life. And then that said, if there isn't any value, the majority of that panel itself is an aluminum frame around the edge, glass on the top, and then a small amount of it is the crystalline structure, which is where I think that actual recycling is still in question. So, all of those other materials are recyclable in today's world, in today's market. The crystalline structure is something that I'm not sure even what, we'll be doing with that in the 20 years in the recycling. But it's conjecture either way. It also maybe have a value for some other use at that point in time as well. Or you're right, it might cost a disposal fee at that point as
Or you
well.
might be able to generate 300 times more electricity with what's out then, so nobody would want them.
Agreed. I don't know how we can necessarily carry all of those what-ifs in an analysis, other than I think we tried to do our best with what
No, I
the
get you.
equipment is out there to come up with, what we think and what we're hoping.
I get you.
And then again, remind you that this is assuming absolute worst-case scenario, and a number of failures have happened to even get to that point.
Because at some point, the town might end up owning that. We might be the owners.
So it sounds like there's another cycle around this this estimate for the surety bond.
How do you
Yeah.
propose to get some, what source would you have to get your own figures?
Again, we'll just reference the House Street one
Well, the
for
House
easily.
Start with
it's
that.
in
We know what that says?
Oh, you do?
Well, it's public record. so
Oh, I
you
know
can't-
that,
you
but
can't-
we don't know what it is,
I don't know what
so
it
we
is,
gotta
but-
go look.
It's
Yeah.
$75,000.
It was 75,000 for what would be an array that's about
How big?
10%,
How big was the House Street
1.9.
array?
For 1.9.
1.9. What's this piece?
DC?
This is 1.7, so it's like, that's 10, maybe 10% difference. That was 2 years ago, a year and a half, whatever.
Well,
Yeah. So 10%
Yeah.
difference, 7,500 of 75,000. So it's 68, but it's 2 years later. Yeah. So you're probably back at 75 or 80, but yeah.
So I
It's a
only asked
very
that question because
comparable size.
I'm in surety discussions on any project, so I recognize that you got to deal with it. Unlike some other things, when you're doing a road build, you can get those quotes. There's a large market of qualified people to give the quotes. This is slightly different, so my question was simply, how do you want to go about that process? I think utilizing the House Street for initial point of reference is not arbitrary, that's for sure. Okay, it's a way to look, but what other kind of information do you have at your disposal? The peer reviewers that were selected here, none of them are qualified, frankly. They'd have to go get some information from another party to get that.
How many pads are there? Do you know?
It's one equipment pad, and then there are, I don't have that number, but give me 1 second, I can grab it, because I know we did calculate it as part of our stormwater analysis.
We have Cal Street, there's Tingsboro, there's a lot.
I mean,
There's plenty of other projects like this.
right here, you got break-up equipment pads. So I would assume you loaded that material out, $1,270. Seems a little light.
Yeah, that's the one.
I think you're gonna be up there. I think you're gonna be up there for a week hammering those up. And
it's
load
just
them
one
out.
pad.
But it sits on pads too, doesn't
The
it?
ballasted
The ballast
systems-
blocks?
The ballast blocks are not,
They're-
they're.
Yeah,
pick up
those
and
wouldn't be
move.
hammered, those would be
There's
loaded
only
out.
one,
Equipment pad.
what is it?
Okay, so
One-
this is
It's-
for like the interchange equipment or something?
Permanent
Correct,
equipment.
correct.
Yes,
That's for the
the
equipment pad.
transformer and
I'm
inverter.
picturing every one of those ballast blocks is like gonna get smashed up and loaded for.
Oh, no, those are small enough that they'll be hauled on-site in trucks, and they'd be hauled off-site in trucks.
It's a
Yeah, and they,
foundation.
Yeah,
right,
So that's
as,
the
you know,
concept.
Yeah, and.
like a mafia block
exactly,
wall
yeah.
type thing or something. I could absolutely
Because
see
you
a
could put the
reuse for
panels
those
back
as they
on
are.
As well, exactly. You could put-
yeah, I mean, my head was in the same place, I'm like, there's a lot of concrete blocks up there, and $1,200, like, I was.
Right,
That's
no.
what-
That's
Yeah, I
that
apologize
permanent
if that was
Inverter
misleading.
transformer equipment pad where the medium
So
voltage
I
equipment
still think, I think we should, assuming there's not anything else on this particular item, I think we should just look at House Street, see if there's another comparable out there, like megawatt size, and just maybe triangulate in that way, because I agree to your point, Jerry, that
No one's gonna give you an estimate.
yeah, we're not gonna.
They're not gonna take the time to do
And
it.
if we did, it would cost us $70,000 and take 2 months or something, so, maybe we take that approach, you guys,
See what we can find for comps.
yeah. And then,
We have a better
I
idea.
presume you guys are intending to be on the next meeting agenda, again, so we can chat about it then.
I'll go take them all.
Yes, is there any way we could work before that meeting to get to a resolution? So that,
I mean, we can work on it, but it will be presented.
I think if you have information, if you could share it with us, we can react to it, and it might assist the next discussion.
Okay. And then, we have a surety bond for the second site. Is there a surety bond for the first array?
The Array 1, the surety will be through EPA and DEP, and it will be, I'm sure, far more elaborate and convoluted, I shouldn't say convoluted, as part of the grant modification. That's the wrong term to use, I apologize. It will be far more comprehensive to address the requirements of EPA and DEP on the site. So it's our hope that the board will agree that the bond for, or, the surety that's put forward for Array 1 with DEP and APA should suffice and cover your requirements, because they're, the end-all, be-all, I assume, when it comes to protecting, their remediation efforts out there,
Okay,
so.
so we will get to see that it will be presented to us at some point when it's.
Yeah, I would say that will be part of the final, either the modification of the grant or some of the narrative that's associated with that at the end of that project, that process as well, yes.
Okay. You guys cool with that?
Yeah.
All right, Matt? Okay. And then on the first topic with this mulch, we chatted through it, or any follow-ups or kind of questions there, you're okay? All right. Feel good?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Anything else?
No, are there any other technical issues of the board that we can help address or answer? So hopefully, when we are sitting here in 2 weeks, we're talking about the final, conditions, assuming we get to that point, and how we can
Right.
address it.
So we need to work with Concom, reviewing the O and M. I haven't done that yet. I know GCG has done it, opposed. I think they're okay with the O and M as you proposed it. But-
Yeah,
So we
and
just need to make sure that all matches. Emily and I talked about that on the phone today.
okay, and that's,
Staff's thing, but I.
sure,
just
that's
wanted
easy,
to be-
that's easy to be sure that everybody is looking at the same O and M documents.
Right,
and-
that's right, exactly. Do we wanna go for conditions? I think we're-
There's one more topic on this I just thought of. So, this is a tree site, I covered trees today. This gets all the equipment up and out of there, but it doesn't put the trees back in all, and is that normal, is that a normal part of these, like this type of thing?
Normally, in every project that I've been involved with, the decommissioning takes it to a stabilized, vegetated site. And then, from there, it's up to the owner what they want to do with it beyond that and moving forward. A lot of these facilities are on landfills, and on a landfill site, it's clear that it has to be, mowed for the life of the landfill. On a site like this, I would say that it provides an opportunity for whatever the next life of this site is. And if the next life of the site is that they don't want to bother mowing this, then within 10 years, it's going to be, vegetated again on its own. If they do decide to keep it as whatever they want to use it for going forward, then that would be
Okay.
how it would be left, and that's what we would propose. So we're not proposing planting mature trees or planting trees even, because it's, this is what the agreement is for the site owner, is to do what we do, and then at the end of it, it's stable and it's vegetated.
You guys comfortable in that? Okay.
And you take out all the lines and the interconnect poles and all that come out.
Exactly.
And then
And a lot of that equipment is on the utility side too. That would be removed. It would all come out.
Okay. Sheila, I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. Do we wanna, we
There's
have.
some value there, the wire. That's
rough
valuable.
draft.
The wire.
I agreed. And I apologize that I can't put my hand on it, but we do have an estimate where somebody went through and calculated tons of steel, tons of copper, and that's kind of how this
Yep.
has all evolved. And it does get bigger and smaller depending on the system size. But yeah, there's absolutely, the cost of copper out there is significant. Yeah, it will be in a locked container before it's put up on the wires, on the poles, I can tell you that.
I'm sure.
So Sheila's just touched down to us on
conditions and
kind of initial,
Initial conditions, yeah.
you have a planting plan too, right? You showed us
Yeah, we
the,
should review that one.
I would
more time.
showed us the, huh?
What?
This is a tough document to review without page one.
Well, yeah, I wanted to focus more on
So,
the conditions.
would-
Just so we can tell you what, if there's any issues we're having with this so far.
In getting to this, I worked with Sheila at her request and to kind of identify the universe of documents that form the basis of the decision. Because if you're kind enough to grant an approval, you're going to require us to construct and operate in accordance with various documents. So we basically took a good stab, at least through today, of identifying all 100% of the documents generated by us or peer reviewers and incorporate them so they can be cited in the decision.
okay.
That includes the landscape plan and every other type of
We'll
document.
review all that when we make
So,
the.
so that's in a draft that Sheila has, all right? And then from those, if you get that far, emanate the conditions. Without those, it's hard to know what's on
Right, I
those
mean, that's
things.
true, that's true, but more topics, if we're getting them, and this is not the last discussion
Well, I think
either,
what we're
so-
trying to do is make sure there's no more surprises, right? We're just kind of
No, we-
doing where we're at, so next time you come, you're
No,
all
we-
ready, and all of a sudden, what about, whoops,
It's more than we can ask for, believe me.
Can-
I think we can work out the finer, I can work out the decision and the applicant, and I think we should be ready to sign next week.
Can you give us
They'll-
copies of what you put together, so we have a
Yeah,
heads up
and
on
there'll be some
everything?
discussion next week on the
Yes.
finer points, and hopefully we
Say-
can change it.
I'd say we make a good effort to be signed next week, but
Yeah.
I don't think,
No, we can't promise.
It's a couple weeks.
Well, yeah, next time.
I think format-wise, as we talked about, it's good. And it lays out it groups construction items
Yeah.
with operation items, which I
Yeah.
think is extremely helpful.
I know, it
to
got
the
read,
reader.
yeah, I don't.
I knew it was gonna
This
take.
is very rough, because
That's
I was
all right.
like, oh yeah, this one and that one, and, yeah.
so, I think we should read this and, I don't, I'm not sure what we're talking about right now, but I
Yeah.
think it's,
No.
I think we need to read it
And then you guys put together the
comprehend it.
more
Yeah. and I
close to
think-
what it is, we can look that over. If we have questions, then we go over it again at the next meeting, and then narrow it down and do all of it.
Right, and then we can.
This might just be going over it.
Yeah, I mean, this is,
Okay.
but just if there's anything glaring or that we're missing.
There's one, I guess, request or comment that I have on item 6. There's an indication here that contractor shall equip each exit point with a watering facility to clean the tires and wheel wells. The runoff shall be directed to on-site stormwater facilities. There's an environmental issue with that when you're talking about wash down of trucks, you're now potentially engaging contaminants like from the truck itself. And I would say that, that is an industrial wastewater scenario that absolutely couldn't be directed into a stormwater facility. So we would rather, and I would say even, especially because, for previous operations for the capping from EPA on the site where there actually was contamination present, there wasn't a wheel wash system or any of those in place. And I think what we're talking about is even.
And that's because of the times, correct?
No, I think that's because of the same concerns and the same liability issue. So I think what we've proposed for an aggressive stone tracking pad, as well as aggressive cleaning of tracked equipment before it leaves the site, is what we hand cleaning. Right. When you run an excavator across dirt, you end up getting there's dirt on the tracks. A guy shoveling it out and then brushing it out is as good as we would recommend, because if you're taking a pressure washer or anything to any of those pieces of equipment, by regulation, by DEP requirements, it has to be contained. That is now industrial wastewater that you're dealing with, so it's a completely different realm that on a construction site for a few months we certainly wouldn't want to get into, and I don't think, we certainly don't think it's necessary, I guess, is our approach, so.
And that's because you're really, there's minimal taking involved because of the ballast that.
Correct, and we're going to build the access road first, which is a imported fill gravel. So the majority of the trucks that are coming and going from the site are actually going to be driving on the gravel road that isn't even soil from the site. So if there's anything that's tracked off the site, it's the material that was brought onto the site. Certainly at the end of each day, that's a typical SWIP requirement during construction. Anything that's tracked onto the road is swept up and cleaned, and there is a 50-foot tracking pad that is essentially 3-inch stone, about 12 inches thick, the last 50 feet before you get to pavement. So the idea is anything that is in the wheels or that is on the trucks gets dropped out in that, and that gets maintained so that the soil doesn't leave the site. That would certainly be our preference from a permit condition, is for those conditions as opposed to a washed down area.
Can we supply that level of detail in text form?
Absolutely, I can provide that in a narrative, exactly what we would propose, yeah.
That would be helpful.
So let's say stuff does get dragged out onto the street. You'll sweep it up, and then I guess the sweepings will be dumped
Back on the site. Yep.
And will you then hand sweep it, or are you gonna?
That's
have
typically what happens is that I should say typically, the management on the site is such that there isn't any that exits the site. But the SWIP requirement with the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, which is the document that governs what happens with the contractor during construction, there's a requirement in there that says at the end of every day, this material gets swept up and it gets maintained. So when they leave the site, if there happens to be something that's tracked onto the street, at the end of every operational day, it's swept up, it's brought onto the site, so there's no impact to the public way.
Would it be can it be swept up as it happens? So that, let's just say.
I want to say it's not going to happen, but
No,
certainly,
right.
yeah,
Just because then that's a busy, if it's commuter hour, there's going to be 1,000 cars going there, and it'll start to spread out.
I think that it's, the standard is for it to be daily. We can certainly talk about it, and I can include that in the narrative that I provide to you too, so.
I think from our standpoint, first of all, thank you very much for preparing this.
Thank you.
I think it makes some sense in terms of getting a good effort for a read. We will now have the opportunity to digest this fully. We'll make some potential text recommendations to Sheila. I'm sure she'll think of some more, because I know she put this together to make sure we had something to look at tonight, which is very much appreciated. So you're not bound by this, Sheila.
Oh, no, I
But
don't find
but you
myself
are bound not to
anything.
completely deviate into something completely foreign. That's a joke.
And we like
then-
to coordinate it with Concom. too,
Right, and
that they-
so we're scheduled, Concom had a couple of meetings, canceled because of lack of a quorum. We're hopeful that they meet on Monday as scheduled.
Correct.
I would anticipate, based upon the comments that are going to come in on the stormwater, that that'll be a fully engaged and substantive meeting that I think will reach some conclusions.
That's our
And
anticipation.
that being the case, then after that, well, yeah, I think we would then engage in next week with getting this thing to a point where we've at least, hopefully resolved all of it between us, but if not, narrowed those points that at least we want to talk about. And then, of course, you're free to talk about all of them, but it'll at least be in a form that we're ready for a nice substantive review at the next meeting, if that makes some sense.
Good.
Excellent.
Got one procedural matter.
Oh, thank you.
I'm just a good guy. In preparing for the last meeting, not tonight, I took a look at my calendar, and I realized that under 9.4.51, you have 120 days to reach a determination on a site plan review, and that date is coming up on September 8th. As a result, I prepared, and told Sheila I was doing so, a request and an assent for an extension of your deadline. We don't want a constructive approval, we want a real approval, if you're so inclined to grant it. And so I would, with your permission, file that, and that has to be something that if you agree with it, and I would hope you would, that you would move to extend the deadline. And I extended it to September 17th, which is after the meeting, so if we are able to finalize it, we would then have time to get a decision rendered. If it doesn't happen, we'll address it again, obviously.
Thank you.
That has to be acted upon.
Sorry?
That has to be acted upon.
Okay. I'd make a motion that on behalf of Citizens Energy, doing business as Ashton Solar LLC, that the applicant, that we extend the deadline upon which this board needs to reach a decision to September 17th, 2018. All those in favor? Aye.
You all set?
Great, yes, thank you
Thank you.
for your time.
Continue to hear.
Yeah, we need to continue here
Oh, it's true.
too. Let's see.
You want to be here for that, September 15th?
September 13th,
7:15.
yeah. We have the other matter. 7:15.
Hopefully be resolved.
Yeah, so we'll just do these both.
Okay. So I make a motion to continue this matter to September 13th at 7:15 PM.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thanks.
Motion, seconded. We need something like an assistant planner to help us out.
Right.
So we don't have-
Although we never can do these things. All right.
Okay, sounds crowded in here.
Yeah, we might have to send out a few more chairs. All right, we're on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, sorry.
Needed some more chairs. You should have seen someone.
Thanks, Sheila.
I might stand actually.
All right, we're sharing the projectors.
Yeah. Here's another chair.
Wait a minute. How does this go on the computer? My hair is different. You're out of context. It's true, yeah. What are you doing?
Is this the,
I do actually. Oh, yeah, you guys. My sister's actually living in the house right there.
well, can it hook in with this HDMI?
Yeah, it looks like that's right.
Oh, is that one the right one? We'll discuss it.
Let's see if it works.
Oh, to that, you mean? Oh, no.
No, come to their computer.
Oh, gotcha, gotcha.
I'm just kidding. It's not like a rule, but have a seat. It might be a rule.
Can you turn it off? Just move that way.
Yeah. Here, you gonna join us over here?
Yeah, come over here. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You good?
All right. Hi, how are you?
Good?
Good to see you too. Okay, so tonight what we would like to do is.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, do you need to introduce? Okay.
So just read it.
Yeah, you can just read it.
Alright, so we're going to open the hearing, continue from August 9th, 2018. David Argentanis, Isabel and Perez have applied for a special permit under Chapter 282, Section 8.5, 8.5.6, 9.3, and for a site plan review under Chapter 282, Section 9.4, and any other applicable sections of the zoning bylaws to refurbish the existing building and operate a brewery, tap room, and cafe with outdoor seating. The applicants are also requesting a waiver of the required off-street parking regulations, loading and landscaping requirements under Section 5.0 of Chapter 282. The property map 14 lot 89 is located at 40 Cherry Street in the ADD-C zoning district. The public discussion related to the site plan review commenced on July 26, 2018.
All right. Okay, so tonight what we would like to do is do a quick review of the schematic designs that we've submitted before, and then go into the 3D renderings that we've submitted, as well as the landscaping plan and the operating plan. So I'm going to turn it over to our architect, Peter Webster, who is going to walk us through the plans.
So just to go through the first pages fairly quickly, this is a plan of the existing building. So the top of the page is north, which is also the parking lot side. The long skinny rectangle is the structure that you can see that runs along the parking lot, and then the rectangle on the lower part is the more garage style with a gable roof. So that's the building as it exists today. And these are the elevations that you look at today as well. So we just did the existing conditions to evaluate the building for what it is in preparation for what it wants to become. That was an early landscape plan. We have a more official version of that, so we don't need to go into it. And this is the interior plan of the building. It's a little pixelated, but again, the north is to the top, which is where the parking lot is in Town Hall. On page right, the door with the arrow off it is the door that comes out to the back of Town Hall right here. And so the main entryway, we're proposing a new entrance more towards the middle of the building, the center of the page, which is that dark, looks like a dark rectangle on this page, and that's the foyer entry cover. So you'd enter into the building there, and again, the long skinny triangle at the top of the page is more the public realm with a bar service at the countertop. You can see the L formation, seating for the public to page right, and the bathrooms and such to page left. If you've followed further into the building, you can see the brewery part, which is down on the bottom of page left. And that's where the functional operating brewery, which is the old garage part, and that bumps up against the residence to the south of the page, and also the residence on the property. And then to the bottom of the page right is the outdoor area. It's currently an outdoor area. We're proposing to fence that in to have an outdoor seating patio zone. This doesn't play well, but this is more for building conditions. It shows the different functional groups of the building. We'll get into that more with the building inspector if we get to a building permit times. But it shows the different functions of both the industrial function of the brewery, the public function of the cafe area, and the outdoor space. So this would be the facade on the north side of the building. So if you're standing in the parking lot, this is the elevation that you would see. You see we've taken the solid concrete wall, we've punctured it with numerous windows to allow viewing to the inside and outside of the building, to open it up to the air. Good communication. The entranceway is towards the center of the page. We'll have an elevated clear story, again, to let natural light into the building. Then the bathrooms and the brewery function are off on page right. This is the back side, the opposite side of the building. So the fenced-in patio area is to the right, and the functional brewery is to the left. This would be the back view, which is from the parking lot with Ashland House to our backs. Again, the clear story with the windows is the one new part of the building we're proposing. It allows light to the center of the building, and the fence protects the patio area, and that's the current door that you'd see from the back of the town hall. Now on the flip side, so this is coming in off Cherry Street, the residence would be right to our left. And this is the garage door entranceway, which we're proposing is the back, the brewery side, the working aspect of the building. This is where deliveries will be received, and an employee entrance. So that's the landscape plan, which I guess we'll come back to. This is a picture that was taken just a couple weeks ago of the property. As you can see, most of the building, this is from the parking lot, town hall is there on the left. Most of the building is covered by the overgrown bushes. So that's what we have today, and we constructed a model of the proposed building as it is, and we superimposed it on that same photograph to illustrate the changes that might occur if we get the permit. So again, on page right, we kind of have the gabled roof, which houses the brewery and the equipment. That lower segment behind where the logo might go is the bathroom block. The entryway, which is the opening, welcoming part to the building. And then the public cafe area stretches out towards the left.
Real quick, could I ask you a question?
Certainly.
Because you're showing us all the elevations and everything. Where's the HVAC, all the equipment and the air conditioning go? Because that's a really low roof. Does it go on the roof?
Yes.
Because none of that's showing in there. There doesn't show any equipment.
Actually, if we can go back to the elevation, I should have pointed out at the time. 1, 2, 3 more. One more. So
That's
we
it,
have,
just those two
yeah, we have the
things?
4 black boxes on the top of the roof, which is a couple of air handlers,
Chillers.
and then the chillers for
No-
the
No
cooler.
other stuff for the brewery or anything?
The brewery needs the chillers, so
Right.
that's what they need
Okay.
for services besides heating and cooling. That's the chillers cool the glycol system, which is the same works for a commercial refrigerator, but instead they circulate the fluid through the tank itself to keep just the beer cold.
Okay.
Um,
I'm looking at the other one with the logo.
Yeah, I guess
Doesn't
it
look like there's anything on there.
didn't make it into that picture. That was our oversight. Well, that was a rendered image with the picture behind it. This is just a picture of the model itself, and we just a representation of sky. So this is the view if you walked out the back of Town Hall and you're looking up towards the entryway with a parking lot to the right. So again, the windows then lead into the cafe space with the plantings in front of it. This is the next one is a bird's eye view of it. Again, we're kind of floating above the parking lot next to the end of Town Hall. And that gives you a view back into that caged-in patio area. And this is more that working end. So we actually, the photos, this image would be where the house is, but looking back at it.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Peter. So before we move on, any questions regarding the images that you've seen?
Is the plan for the windows on the front and the rear to be such that they open, or they like non-openable glass casing windows? What's the thought?
I think the thought is that we would like to have the option to open the windows. That is something as far as, specific window types that we can, get into more details further down the road,
Yeah,
but that's
yeah.
our thinking. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. And also, so we know that after our last presentation that there were some concerns by both members of the board and some of our neighbors on Cherry Street about noise and odor and how this project would impact that. So Peter's just going to touch on those elements a little bit before we go into this operating plan.
I guess we'll start with noise, since we said noise and odor. As far as the building is concerned, as you mentioned, there's some rooftop units for heating and cooling, and those will have the fans that operate. The same thing with the cooler, just like any other restaurant cooler. So those do emit a noise. We can have corrals on the rooftops or surround them to help bounce the sound up into the air instead of into the neighborhood. And so we would do something like that to help control the sound as much as possible. Other ideas of sound came up where I think we'll get into the deliveries. Deliveries will not be made early in the morning. We're looking at 2 to 3 deliveries a week. All can be made after 9 o'clock in the morning during business hours. We have that. Other sounds, I guess, have been brought up have been the sounds of typical operation and people enjoying themselves at the establishment. I don't believe there's any significant sounds that would be emanating from the building itself. And I guess there was concerns about the outdoor patio and people being outside. And we realized the town has an ordinance for patios for people with liquor licenses, and that all of those rules will be abided by. That's also why we put the fence around the patio to help contain that sound, so the sound isn't just going across the Ashland house or into the parking lot. And so the other 2 sides are protected by the building itself. As far as smells, there's concern, the brewing process itself creates a smell that people talk about. It usually comes up, we've done a series of breweries and it comes up every single time. The smell is created when you cook the grain to make the beer. The current schedule has them brewing 2 to 3 times a week. It's a 7-hour or so process, and there's about 1 hour in time in which they're boiling the grain that the smell is released through the stack and out into the air. The smell, to give people an idea of what the smell is, the smell smells like cooking breakfast cereal. It's barley that's being boiled, or the juice of the barley is being boiled. So that's what the smell actually smells like. And so again, we're talking about 1 hour discharge twice or maybe 3 times a week.
And then, also as far as trash, obviously, we will comply with the town ordinances, not to have trash removed before 8 o'clock in the morning. Be very mindful of when and how we are taking out trash to the dumpster, so as to minimize any impact on the neighborhood. Just kind of segueing into this operating plan. So we are proposing operating hours of 9 to 11, 7 days a week. As Peter mentioned, we know that there is an ordinance in the bylaws about establishments with liquor licenses not allowing noises to go beyond the premises past 10 o'clock. So we definitely intend to abide by that ordinance. One thing we would like to point out is we don't anticipate that our patio peak time is going to be 10, 11 o'clock at night. Typically with the craft brewery, with the tap room and patio model, your peak hours are during the daytime into early evening, and then kind of tapering off significantly as you get to that 10 o'clock window. So if there ever were a situation where it was noisy out there at 10 o'clock, we would certainly ask that patrons go inside in order to not create a nuisance to our neighbors. And as Peter mentioned, the brewing days in the beginning, definitely, we're talking 2 days a week. Boil 1 hour out of those 5 to 6 hour brew days. Deliveries, anticipate 2 to 3 supply deliveries per week to the Cherry Street side of the building. Because of the size of our driveway and the scale of the operation, it'll have to be small trucks, not large 18-wheelers trucking down Cherry Street. And then, one thing we also wanted to touch on tonight was parking. So, our patrons will be encouraged to use all parking available in town. We recognize that the municipal lot will be the main parking area, but fortunately, the peak times for our brewery are non-peak times for town hall business, and when that lot is used most heavily during the week. And we do realize that there is a concern about parking availability, so we are working on an agreement with the town to develop a vacant lot at the corner of Cherry Street and Tilton Ave to kind of serve as overflow parking if there are instances where that municipal lot is at capacity. We do have a proposal for a feasibility study as to the cost of developing that lot, and we are definitely willing to pay for that study. But I think before we get to that point, obviously we would want to feel confident that all other concerns have been addressed and there's nothing outstanding before we commit to that expense. And then if we were to add those additional spots, early estimation is that it would add about 20 to 25 spaces. With our square footage and being in the ADC zone, we would require 23 parking spaces, so that would more than cover our requirement there. All right, any questions to this point?
few. These are, one of the things you can do is go to, I've been sitting in traffic at the train. And certain times you can hear stones, outdoor patio in the other lane, so it can get kind of loud. I feel better if you had like the hours, not just if it's late and you're loud, we'll bring them in, but had restricted the hours on the outside so that it was never a problem. You know what I mean? Because you get busy, everyone's doing it, and then you forget, and the neighbors are all gonna be calling in, it's after 10, you're now, you know what I mean? You might wanna think about just restricting the patio hours to where it's within the bylaws to start with, so you don't have to worry about somebody having to determine if it's too loud, go out there. And the other thing is the dumpsters, because at 11 you're gonna close, right? And that's when you take all your trash and everything out, so 11:30, 12 o'clock, if someone's slamming it, you know, if they drop the dumpster door, that might be an issue too.
Sure, yeah, no, so just to address those points, so with the dumpster, that's been brought up before. We've talked to other businesses, and one option that people have used is to restrict taking the refuse out to the dumpster to the morning, so that you're not, you know, clanking bottles or whatever else at 11:30 after you've closed. So we would definitely institute that. And then to your first point, you know, I think in order for us to be able to kind of, you know, compete on a level playing field with Stone's, with Erica's, who, you know, Stone's open till 1 a.m. 4 days a week, 12 a.m. the other 2 days. You know, Erica's 11:30. You know, we need to be able to have comparable hours, and their patios are open until those times, and as long as they're complying with the ordinance.
Exactly,
Yeah.
but what I'm saying is, they're not 5 feet from a residential.
That's right.
They're out on a main road, and so the nearest residential where someone might be trying to sleep or whatever is not 15 feet away. I'm just suggesting this, I'm just throwing it out there
We'll consider
because
it,
this
yeah.
could end up being a problem, and, you know, so you might want to think about making it so that it's not a problem.
That's something that we can think about.
Yes, because I know you want to compete and everything, but your situation is not the same as Stone's. Your situation is you're basically in a residential area all around it, so noise is going to end up being a big factor.
True. I mean,
We
I
don't
guess.
wanna end up having you guys in front of the selectmen about your license and this and back, and the police showing up all the time, and you know what I mean? So you really might want to think about seriously how you're going to make sure, and I know businesses get busy, and if they're loud and it's 10:45 and there's someone's laughing and having a party out there, and you don't have an employee to run out there and herd everybody back inside, you know what I mean? So it may be just something to think about, because I have a feeling that might be a big issue, being so close to residents. It's my 2 cents.
I think that's within our purview. I'm not positive, but is that within our purview?
Yeah, we can limit hours.
Not trying to, you know,
No, I understand. Yeah.
give the competition any advantage or anything, but you're really, if you go over there, you're really right next door to those houses, and you're close to the apartments, the dumpsters are right there. And I mean, if I was woken up at 11 o'clock and someone slammed the dumpster once, maybe it's like, okay, but if it happened over and over, it might end up being an issue that you want to try to preemptively take, see what you can do to minimize that situation. And the lighting, you're gonna have the front patio, is that lighted? And maybe you show a patio cover coming out, is there lighting under that? And I saw it look like a couple of lights on the side.
Yes.
So it's pretty much the parking lot lighting is gonna take care of everything else, and then your sign.
Right.
Which you
Yeah.
have to go through the sign people or whatever, right? What is that else?
Design review.
Building commissioner, it could get bumped to us. Depends on,
And where it's at really probably doesn't make any sense, the parking lot kind of, you know, it's not like you have neon blasting into someone's house.
No, definitely not.
Any other discrete comments from the board?
Well, I have another one too. you know,
Okay.
so we keep doing parking lot,
Close yours now.
trash, you guys are gonna have to clean up, help clean up the parking, we have to make some kind of arrangement because if people are coming out and smoking, throwing their cigarettes or dropping cigarette, whatever, it's just, there's people coming in, we have to figure out something where the town doesn't have to clean up after.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's reasonable.
And landscaping, of course, you're going to figure that out, because part of it's town property and part of, am I the only one here?
So, the strip of, sorry, the strip of, green that's on the side that faces town hall, where the front door will be, who actually owns that? Is that part of the property user purchase, or is that actually town, or is it shared?
Right.
split?
So where the landscaping is, and that's a good opportunity to go to the landscaping plan. So where the landscaping is within our property line. The proposal here is to add a walkway in front of the building, and one thing. This was kind of a first draft with our landscape architect. One thing we noticed is, she did extend the walkway all the way to Cherry Street, and then kind of wrapped it around. I'm not sure what the appetite is at this point for having a walkway extend all the way to Cherry Street. I mean, we would be open if in the beginning, folks wanted to restrict it to kind of the ends of the lot. But we felt it was definitely a safety issue, to have people kind of parking and then having to walk behind their cars and walking around the lot. Better to have an option when somebody pulls in to just be able to get up on a walkway. So that's something that is definitely open for discussion. The other thing I want to point out too is on the plan. It does say concrete as a material for the walkway. It was meant to be permeable concrete or asphalt or some other permeable material. So that was an oversight. We don't want to completely pave over this strip and potentially have some stormwater issues and runoff issues. So the intention is definitely to have a permeable surface for that walkway.
Well, I just think any place like the sidewalk going to Cherry is a good idea, because if it's landscaping, it's going to get trampled. People are going to be walking. If anyone's coming that way or walking, they're going to walk. They're not going to walk around the parking. They're going to trample right through everything.
My hunch is you would have a little path that would get trod down, and eventually, it would be kind of like,
we
well,
can't count on that. That's just what I'm saying.
yeah.
No, exactly.
That's
Yeah,
it.
not a good-
Everybody
not a good
signs,
look.
Stay on the path.
Not a good thing, yeah. I'm just saying that it would, if we don't do it, people would do it with their feet.
And these are all just questions because I know about when people mill around out and they go out to smoke and they go out and talking and doing their stuff and coming and going. So, just popping into my head that you might want to, in case I'm sure you thought a lot of this stuff, but
So now people won't be able to smoke there, so they probably will go somewhere and smoke outside.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a distance from the town hall as well. I don't know what
If they can't smoke.
it is. Yeah,
Something.
Public property.
So it'll have to be
Is it
marked.
all public property? Because the parking lot's part of that, right?
yeah, it's the distance from the municipal, it's from the building, not the parking lot.
Okay.
We'll have to figure that out.
Make
because
sure you
that
check
will
on
be-
that and see.
Yeah.
I just know that if there's any shortcuts, people are gonna plow through the shortcut.
yeah.
They're not gonna take the walkway if it's any deviates. They're just gonna go the shortest route to whatever, wherever.
Yep. Agreed.
So, the strip of land on the front of the building by the front door, it's partly part of your property, partly town property. I think the permeable concept is good.
As long as it looks nice.
I think that stuff is more expensive, so just kind of think about that. I mean, I think as part of a decision, we would probably be clear about who's to kind of maintain what. I think we'd want to be really discreet about that, so there's just, no confusion.
Right.
In that regard.
Also, just to clarify, it's our understanding that were we to proceed with the walkway, we would have to get approval from the Board of Selectmen, correct? Because that would be town
Probably
property.
on town
Okay.
property. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
Anything on town property?
Well, even if it's on town property, landscaper or paver, they're gonna have to get approval, right? If
Right,
you do
right.
anything
Yeah.
because
to it.
they're-
Anything on
they're-
town property.
No matter what you
they'd be
do, you're
removing,
gonna have
yeah,
to get, and
the
they're,
existing
they're,
shuttering.
it's not gonna be a big deal. Well, this is a good plan.
Right.
So did you ever figure out that the dumpsters are gonna make it extra space and put them three together?
We're still
Still-
still working that out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the smell, is that a fan system or something that takes it out of the building? Or is this a vent that's open?
It's an exhaust stack, so it is a active fan in the stack.
And are
that
there
just-
ways to like blow it the other way so it's not going towards the house? I don't know if that'll make any difference. I don't know anything about this brewing stuff, but, or, put the Febreze clip-on thing. I mean, is there any way to make the smell go away from the residents?
Usually the
towards-
fan, so depending on the strength of the fan, the fan will eject it straight out, because typically you shoot it one way, you piss off one person, you shoot it the other way, you piss someone else
But
off.
one way
The idea is
here,
to get
there's
it
no
up
one to piss
into the
off.
airstream so that it floats away.
But if you look in this plan, or if you go one way, there's no one really to piss off. If you go straight up or the other way, there might be, so.
Right. So I think
I'm just saying, I'm just
Yeah,
throwing
we'll
stuff
work,
out
yeah.
there
Yep.
because I know nothing about that, but
Yep.
if
Yeah.
there are ways, I know in this day and age, there's gotta be, and I'm sure the residents smell pizza cooking and stuff probably once in a while.
Do you know
but because
when that
it's-
hour would be during the day?
so. Yeah. So it would probably be typically around midday, because you're gonna start the brew day 8, 9 o'clock, and you do the boil a few hours in. So it would be usually around 11, 12 o'clock.
So that would be like the peak lunchtime with Nick's too, where there would be other rooms around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was saying, because it probably smells from pizza.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I smell pizza places, but it's a different smell probably, but.
Yeah, like I said, it does smell like cereal. It
Some
smells like
people-
hot grape nuts. So
Well,
it's a more of
almost
a
everybody
base
likes
bready.
pizza. I don't know how many people like hops.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Have you ever smelled
smells
hops?
are very
They're
particular. Some
delicious,
people
yes.
like them and some people don't. So it's hard to know until you actually smell it.
Yeah, no.
Well, I'm just trying to, because
Yeah.
these things are gonna come, so you guys have a
Absolutely.
heads up on, and try to do everything we
appreciate
can
that.
to make everybody as okay as we can.
Mm-hmm.
I think there might be a point to clarify on the trash too. So you guys are you're brewing your own beer. You're not selling other people's beer, correct?
Correct.
So most of it's going to be draft,
Exactly. So
Exactly.
and then you're not serving food. So you're mostly going to be throwing out they're not throwing out 1,000 beer bottles. They're throwing out like soft waste, and the lid on the dumpster is plastic. So it's not throwing like 1,000 beer bottles out with a metal lid on top. It should be fairly quiet.
But-
If you even wait till the morning's fine. But
Even a plastic lid slamming down at 11 o'clock at night is not.
yeah, but
Right.
I know, but I think some people might have the
pouring
impression
the
that's
bottles,
like
I meant actually opening and closing.
Yeah.
If they take 3 loads out there and it's bam, 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 that can be kind of annoying, so
Yep.
Yeah, I think a lot of restaurants face that issue, and the simple answer is to don't
That's
do it
what
at
I was
night.
thinking.
You just
Yeah.
you do it
I
in the
didn't know
morning.
if there was
It's
any
just-
health
it's a very
regulations
simple
where you
solution.
keep it inside overnight or out in the patio overnight or not or whatever, but if that's possible, you could do it when you come in, clean everything up and do it so that the dumpster's not used after certain hours or whatever.
Yep.
Are they during the construction, can they do all of this without being in the town parking lot, you think? I mean, are they gonna be coning off part of the town parking lot? I'm sure at some point if they put a sidewalk in, they're gonna have to do some of it, but we're gonna have to kind of need an estimate probably on how much time is the parking lot's gonna be coned off for doing whatever they have to do there, right?
Yeah, so yes, I would say during typical construction, there would be a time frame, particularly when they're doing that sidewalk strip, that they would need
'Cause
access.
most of it you can go in through the driveway, right?
Exactly.
Everything
Right.
will go in there, but
Right.
working on the windows and that side, are there gonna be 6 trucks blocking up places or you know what I mean? And at some point in a concrete truck doing it or whatever you're doing there. So just so you know, we're gonna have to have some kind of a heads up on what's gonna happen in the
Yep, I
parking.
think it'd be very simple to set up, and the general principle is, you know, they're not contractors, trucks parking in the parking lot, clogging things up, you know, they can park at that lot.
Yeah, but
That
just so
hasn't
you
been
know,
developed
we need-
yet,
we need some
and
kind of a
they get
plan
site access
probably
through the driveway.
on how you're gonna manage that without affecting the.
Yep, and that's why the general contractor, when they know of a certain date where they need to get access, they can notify, we set up a channel of notification and the timeframes in which, so it's clearly stated when that activity is happening.
Are you
Right.
putting any kind of, I don't see it on there, but are you putting any kind of a fence on that driveway in the back?
Fence on the driveway in the back.
Block it off
The
so
one next to our
people-
house, you mean?
Yeah. It's just gonna be open, right?
Yeah, we
Yeah, I
haven't
mean,
really.
there's not going to be, you know, whether it's signage, whatever, there'll be a way to clearly signal that that's not a
entrance.
public
That's our house.
Well,
entrance.
because if
Yeah.
people know it's there and they're coming from that, you know, they might have a tendency to go like, is there a shortcut?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Can you, Tom, pull your microphone closer?
Peter?
Yeah, or just
Peter or
all
Dave?
of
Just
us.
Jen.
Yeah, I'm worried.
No, they're coming through. okay.
They are coming through? All right.
Did you push that back to exactly where it was? Level setup.
So, in terms of the list of issues and talking points here to kind of discuss, we've covered a lot. One additional item is just from the perspective of the dumpster location. I know there's been some discussion. Is that worth talking about right now, or where does that sit?
I don't think we're at a point where we have enough information to
Yeah.
really present, unfortunately. We were hoping to be at that point, but we just aren't, so.
Okay. But from a public knowledge perspective, the proposal is the dumpster is located where, and is it your property or is it whose property?
Right, so what we're working on is potentially an agreement with the town to use space where the town dumpsters are currently located, potentially reaching out to Ashland House to see if we might be able to work on an agreement with them where we could have the dumpster located. So if you're looking at, you see where the municipal dumpsters are, off to the left it says edge pavement. So that's the end of the parking lot that Ashland House owns. So that's something that we're looking at as an option too.
And that entrance on the dumpster side, is that just an emergency exit, or is that entrance and exit too? Because anyone that parks over, they're gonna start going like, we can park right there and go in that way.
Yeah, no,
So-
emergency exit. So the only way in will be through the front entrance. Yep.
So I think for me, the dumpster being on the town property is kind of a problem. I don't really like it. I don't really like it. I like the feel of it. It's a little much, personally.
Okay.
For what reason?
For the reasons is, I mean, it's a great idea for a business and I like it, but at a certain point, a business has to stand on its own. The town, I mean, we can only do so much. You know what I mean? There's a lot of other businesses in town. Why should one get such treatment? You know what I mean?
Can
But-
somebody point out for me, on that illustration there, exactly where you're talking about these dumpsters being?
Lower right corner.
As in point out
There's-
to me, please?
There's two of them right there.
Okay,
Right now, the town
okay.
has two of them.
That's on the right side, yes,
So there's
not the
already-
left side, lower right.
Lower right.
Okay, so.
So we're
I
still,
understand it's unresolved.
Yep.
And, but we're just putting it out there so it's in the public discussion, which is
Mhm.
what what we need to do, so.
Is there gonna be any lighting in the driveway? More lighting, maybe kind of.
Which driveway?
What traffic?
Our driveway on
Your
the
driveway.
single-family home,
Because you don't use that after a certain hour, you're probably not gonna use that.
It's
for-
only to be used as deliveries,
Yeah.
and then our personal.
Personal use as
Yep.
a personal residence.
Exactly.
Okay.
Is there any ideas on keeping the children from making noise, and playing during the day?
You're joking, he's joking.
don't know where this is going.
I didn't know the town of Ashland was anti-children. I thought
Children, right?
this was a family community.
Okay.
My concerns are the smell and the noise, really, the main concerns is, I've been over there, you know, the stones, it can get pretty loud on the patio sometimes, so and if you go stand right there, it's really close to those houses, you know, so just to make sure. And the smell, I don't know, I've never been to one, maybe I should go by one of these breweries and smell it, but.
Yeah, I would, for anyone that has reservations, including, the public, I would encourage you to go to a local brewery like Medusa. It's a very similar size as to what we're proposing in Hudson. And you will see what you smell and what you don't smell.
Because it won't smell like that inside, right?
Nope.
When you're eating there, it's sort of pumped out.
But you'll find too, even in the out on the outside, the sidewalks, walking around the building, you're not getting these huge wafts of,
Except for there's a
industrial
house, there's a
byproduct.
two-story house right next door, so it's up high.
Right.
So that might be a different story for that.
Okay, so, any other specific items to address? I think there's,
If they don't do the dumpsters there, what, I guess they would have to put them in the driveway or something, huh? Because if you're opposed to that,
Yeah, I am. It's,
or they'd have to notch out a place over there in the other corner on their property. That'd be like 20 feet away from it.
And cut, yeah, you might have to cut a tree or two over there.
okay. Anything else? So I think there's certainly some public comments, so I want to allow for that. Any other specific things that you guys want to cover with us, or anything specifically for us?
No,
No,
I think
thank
that
you.
covers it. Yep.
Okay. So, anybody would like to comment on this? I think we just asked that you probably, if I need your chair and that microphone, if you could. Yeah, and then just, before we start public please, but before we begin, we did receive two emails, directed to the planning board and the planning office here in town, and, I'm not gonna read them in full, but I would say, broadly, one of them expresses excitement for the project and continued support. The individuals couldn't be here tonight. They believe the brewery is a great step for Ashland, and they're a fan of the design that they've seen proposed thus far, and that overall thinks it's broadly good for Ashland and from a business perspective, and just in general very positive and support and excited about it. The other letter from somebody here in town who owns and manages a home on Cherry Street, and expresses concerns that historically the units and the homes have been family oriented, and concerned about families having concerns about being across from an operating brewery, saying that the Cherry Street has a distinctly residential feel, and goes on just to basically say that supports brewing and craft brewing and eating, but doesn't believe it's the right location so close to residential housing. Goes on to speak about parking, and concerned about people using Cherry Street to park while frequenting the business. and, kind of comments on, the fact that the entrance to the building is kind of through the city hall parking lot, town hall parking lot. And, expresses comments on deliveries and timing and so forth. So I'd say broadly, a letter supporting and a letter expressing some concerns about the location and a few aspects of the project, so.
Well, just real quick, the entrance being at the town hall, I think is better than if it was on Cherry Street. I mean, if it was on Cherry Street, and everybody'd be pouring out into Cherry Street. So it, at least with it on the side, it puts it kind of a little bit away from the residential. It's not gonna make any people that happy.
I agree.
I'm just saying.
I agree,
that
but it
it's-
is a little bit
it's-
unprecedented.
I know, but I'm just saying that if you had to choose, the better of whatever. Okay.
And those were the
Someone
only
else
two
talk.
emails that came in?
I'm sorry?
Sorry, those were the only two emails that the board received?
It's the only two that I mean,
Today.
today, for this meeting, in previous sessions, there were, I think, in excess of 20 emails that we did receive in support of the project. That was at our first hearing, so, we usually only just talk about recent correspondence, so there was no effort to, limit the story there. We're just
Yeah, no, I'm just concerned because I also sent an email and I don't think that's mine, I think you read.
Okay. Did you send it late in the day?
I think 2 days ago.
Okay. So we can.
I know, I mean, we can all speak, I just want to make sure that things didn't get lost
So
in the
I-
shuffle.
I would
Yeah,
say
yeah, that's fine.
Just, try to comment, yeah.
Yep.
Apologies, it got missed.
Hi, Donald
Should be
Rushford.
sent.
I live right next door to the proposed brewery, and in none of these diagrams it shows how close my house is to this building. We are 6 feet apart, and our house is right here. My bedroom window's right here, right over the proposed outside seating area, and maybe even a dumpster now. I don't know, but that concerns me, that the noise, how often does the dumpster get picked up? I mean, there's gonna be food waste and the mash stuff, all that, is there gonna be like flies all around the dumpster and stuff, or?
No, so that doesn't go in,
It's like a
this-
recycle.
this-
Yeah, you gotta go to
sorry,
the-
sorry.
Just take the cherry then.
Yeah.
I'll get myself over here.
So the spent grains don't get deposited in the dumpster.
Okay.
So they are contained in sealable containers
Oh,
that
okay.
stay inside the brewery.
Yep.
And then we contract with a compost company who will come out 2 to 3 times a
Oh,
week
okay.
to pick that up. So
See, I didn't, yep.
sure, no.
This is a little education for me. too.
Yeah, no, understood. So none of that byproduct from the brewing process goes into the dumpster. And the waste that will go into the dumpster, again, just to point out, we're not proposing a commercial kitchen operation
Right.
with food on premise. There will be,
You are gonna serve food.
light,
Yeah.
it's kind of light snacks, pastries, that sort of thing, for the coffee cafe side of the building. But, of course, we don't want a big stinking dumpster. It's not
Bad
good.
for business.
It's not good for our business. It's not good for the neighborhood. And I think too, I definitely want to point out, that we're living at 40 Cherry, right behind
Yep.
the brewery. So we want to be as conscientious about our neighborhood as anyone else, living on the street. So having a smelly dumpster or having, trash around the property are things we wouldn't stand for. So I definitely, hope to kind of alleviate some concerns around that.
The mechanical equipment on that flat roof is also right outside my window.
Very noisy.
And is that gonna be like running 24/7, or how's that work? And is there an option of, like the town hall air conditioning things are all on the ground out back here? Is that an option to do that for your business instead of having the mechanicals on the roof?
Right, I think unfortunately, as you can see on the site plan, so there's a fence that divides our
Yes.
properties, right? So There isn't room to put anything back there.
What about like between the building and your house there, that square area that's grass now?
Yep.
Why couldn't they be over there?
We can absolutely consider it.
You know what I
Absolutely.
mean?
Yep.
Okay.
Is that possible with that roof that's on there to run all that?
Well, it's
and
just
then have
piping, I'm
ducting and
sure.
everything?
There's lawn there, that patch of white behind.
I know, but
Right.
I'm just saying, what kind of heating and air conditioning you gonna have? Because it looks to me like that's just a flat roof with just rafters, right? So
It is a
how do you
flat
get the
rafters,
heat from
you
there
know.
over all the way to the end? How do you get it on a 8, I don't even know if that roof's 8 feet,
This is
is
a
it?
flat roof here.
Yeah.
This is the gabled roof.
Air
So
handlers
the
would have to be
anticipation is,
inside.
it would be an air handler, and then ductwork would go inside, and then the ductwork will run
Be
on
a
the
commercial
ceiling.
look inside.
Is
There'll
that
be
enough
probably-
room in there for that?
Yeah.
We're gonna make the room.
It looks really low, like you hit your head on that if you went in there and put
It's not as
ductwork
low as you
inside,
think.
you know?
It is low, but it's not
That's why
quite,
I
it's
was
not quite that
questioning it,
low.
because it just looks
Um,
like it,
So a longer run does bring in larger diameter ductwork, so that was something that we grapple with as the situation comes up. And that's why, one of the solutions is to do more smaller units to be able to accommodate. And things like the coolers for the compressors for the coolers, they run liquid coolant, and so
Right.
that can be
Right.
plumbed individually. So that's not like a ductwork that has to go through it. We anticipate putting a new roof on that section of the building. Is structurally was undersized when they put it on in the first place. So when we do that design, we will definitely be working in close coordination with the HVAC team to make sure it all works out right.
Oh, that'd be good. The outside seating noise and the mechanical noise and the dumpster are my biggest issues. That's,
And just to give an idea, the power of the outside noise, it's a unit like you have on top
Mhm.
of the.
I know, I work at a big senior living complex. We got chillers everywhere, and they're not quiet.
Right, that's why they are different sizes, and I think that's why the intention was to keep them smaller so that their individual noise, sound output would be lower. They also sell, sound abatement kits, and so we'd be able to install those in these units.
But they run 24/7, correct?
The heating and cooling will depend on the
Yeah.
demand, so those will go
Yeah.
on and off, but the cooler to keep the
So-
refrigerant in, that does run all the time like these ones.
and we discussed too about the dumpsters. If they have them there, they're gonna get on some kind of a plan that's with the town, so that they're emptied at the same time, so it's just once in and out, and that's during
Yeah.
daytime hour. So we discussed with them about that, if they end up there, then we'll have some kind of a plan where they're not gonna come at 6 in the morning and empty the dumpster, or
Well, they do now.
they do.
Uh-oh.
I
Take it
guess
up to the
that's
town.
just, maybe we have to specify not on the town schedule.
Thank you.
Can I just say
Whoops.
something?
But
I
we
think-
discussed that, and that's
Please
what.
do.
I'm sorry. I'm just gonna say quick, I think I like what you said about the patio
What's your name?
and Marianne. I'm Donald's wife. Because I think it's gonna be very noisy for us. You can see that our bedroom it's gonna be near the open area. So what you said, I thank you very much to mention that, because people can be very loud. And I don't know, maybe you come up with something that really block the noise, because we can see that it's really a deal, so we can't do anything about it. So maybe you could do that for us. That would be nice, because we go to bed early. So and I know it's gonna change our lives. So
I don't know, does
especially
it
for my
help to
husband.
have awnings and stuff over it? Does that absorb and dissipate, if
Because
patios that have
when you lie
awnings over
down,
it or something?
you can really hear everything. So it's a really quiet neighborhood. So we hear everything. So, and as we are neighbor, we don't want to get any issues. We want to get along. All right. I think you mentioned a lot of topics that really it is for us that live nearby. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Bruce Melanson, 45 Cherry Street. I'm across the street on the opposite side, directly across the street from 40. And I just want to welcome you to the neighborhood, by the way. It's just because we have our issues with certain plans here, that doesn't mean that you can't be welcomed as neighbors. We are neighbors, so I just want to mention that. The parking is still a concern to me, because what I really don't want is parking right in front of my house. The space is in front of my house. And even with the extra lot down by the Tilton Cherry Street corner there, the proposed lot there, that seems an awful far away for people to walk from to get to their establishment. It seems impractical for a lot of people, I would think, and the most natural thing would be to park right in front of my house if there's overflow from the lot. And that concerns me because that's where the noise will come from at 10, 11 o'clock at night, and I haven't go to bed early myself, especially on Thursdays and Fridays where I'm up at 4 in the morning. So how, is there any way that parking could be restricted from?
Is there's parking on your side right now?
Well, there's no parking
I didn't know.
signs.
I was talking to one of the selectmen, he didn't know if there was actually parking on that side of the street. But you're right, we
Just
talk
make it
about
resident
that.
parking only.
Exactly, well, they could, the selectmen can do that, right? They can restrict
Make it
the parking in
resident
front of your
parking only.
houses so that it's not,
You mean like putting a sign, or?
yes,
No parking.
that zone would be a,
Yeah.
no parking between
Resident,
certain
just
hours or
resident parking.
resident
Yeah.
or.
That's the thing that would affect me most directly as far as this goes. I'm
And
further away from Don, obviously, but how noisy it will be and how smelly it will be, I have no idea. But I'm used to having a business there. That's not a problem. I'm not against business. The bar company was always there when I was there, but that was a daytime operation too. So that's basically my main concern.
And I think the auxiliary parking, I'm not sure, is not like their parking lot. They're doing that so the town has more parking because they're using some of that.
Mitigation.
So it's not like they're gonna have all these people parking there and they're gonna be parking there and, well, maybe, hopefully, if you're that popular, it'd be good, but I think the reason why, the more of the reason of that, isn't it, is to keep the parking, because they're taking some away from the town, is to have available parking for the town.
Yeah.
So it's not
Okay.
like that's people are gonna park there and
Yeah.
walk, they may,
Yeah.
but I think they would park in front of Nick's and over there first, and before they park way down there, but that's
Yeah.
because to meet their parking requirements, so that so I think that's, it's not that they won't park there, but I think the reason of doing that parking lot is so that the town still has plenty of parking. And then most of the people are gonna park in the town parking lot.
It's to offset
around
the
that
parking
side.
they don't
Yes,
have.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. I'm just curious as to how many employees would be ultimate plan when the full thing gets going here.
Yeah, sure. So we anticipate that we'll probably have, 4 full-time employees. That includes a master brewer, and then, maybe anywhere from 4 to 6 kind of part-timers that would, essentially be, manning the taps and be on kind of, shift schedules. All told, 8
And I would
to
think
10.
maybe somehow the employees park in the off lot, because you don't wanna have from 9 to 11, 4 to 8 spots taken all day in the town hall and everything. It would be like maybe something in there too, the employees will park in that lot or
Right.
off, somewhere, so it doesn't affect the town having always 4 to 8 parking spots gone.
Right.
From 9 till 11 at night.
So that'll be part of our, healthy living, healthy habits plan for our employees. Park, walk a little, get some exercise, get some air in the lungs. But no, it's a good point.
Employee handbook. It's just
Yeah.
park there.
Exactly.
Corey Chase, 11 Harrington Drive. First, I just want to say it's really nice to see the neighbors speak up, but it's been a really civil discussion, which is awesome. It doesn't always go that way, and I respect that a lot. To voice your differences, but everyone's been really nice about it, which is cool. I like the idea of the project. I think the design looks great. You know, this building, as you saw in that picture, was all overgrown, didn't look great. And I think this is a great use of that space. I think it'd be great for the town. Everybody talks about revitalizing downtown. Well, you know, this is our chance, I think. As far as the neighbors, I totally understand all their concerns. At the end of the day, to me, it's a commercially zoned building. And if everyone can try to work to, you know, keep it as reasonable as possible, I think everyone can get along. It can be a great place for everyone to enjoy, and, you know, even the neighborhood can benefit from it. You know, property values could increase from this. Rents could be higher, you know, everybody could win. That's just my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's M.R. Fletcher, and I live on at 20 Pleasant Street, across Cherry Street from the corner spot. I have obviously a whole list of concerns here, but one thing I keep hearing is we plan to do this, we intend to do that, we will try to do something else to mitigate the problems. What recourse does the neighborhood have if this doesn't work out? Do we end up calling the police every night, or what? Is there something we can do to back off the problems if they do emerge? Because trying to keep your patrons quiet isn't keeping them quiet necessarily. I've noticed that the noise is not particularly well controlled at the corner spot. It seems to me that it's kind of blown off. Oh, well, it's not much noise. You know, if they're not concerned with the noise there, now I can hear that music from there. When I'm in my house with the windows shut and the air conditioning on, and if I wanted to hear it, I would go down there and listen to it. I don't want to hear it, and nobody seems to believe that I should be concerned about that, but I am. So I wonder how well the noise will be controlled for something like this. Also, public housing is planned for the corner spot eventually. And I expect to see working families there with children. So now you want to put a bar next to it?
It's not a bar.
It's a bar. It has a liquor license. It sells
It
alcohol.
doesn't have
It's a
liquor
bar.
license.
So hold on, I just want to, address that. So, while we will have a tap room inside, right, serving alcohol, serving beer, if you go to any local brewery, I encourage you again, visit Medusa, visit Startline in Hopkinton, Craft Roots in Milford. You're not going to see a out of control drinking environment where people are, again, when it's closing time, pouring into the streets and causing mayhem for the neighborhood. And we don't have a full liquor license, right? We're not pouring liquor in shots, it's just again, I would just encourage you to to visit some of these places to get a better feel for what this type of operation actually looks like in practice.
I go to a craft brewery every Wednesday night in Framingham. So I have been there.
They're very family oriented now.
They have kids' corners.
That's not
Okay.
I know, they have liquor licenses at the corner spot now, where it's supposed to be for kids. Sorry.
The person at the microphone has to speak, and the applicants can respond. I understand there's a lot of opinion around this, but please, we have to keep orderly here. Please continue.
And I own a rental place on Cherry Street, and the tenants there have already said they're looking to move out if a brewery comes in across the street from them. So this business is interfering with my livelihood directly. That bothers me. And I realize that this lot has now been made public. I thought it was supposed to be the town hall lot, but now it's public. But is it sufficient, even with this additional spot that's proposed, for public housing, plus full-time bar, plus town hall business, And plus, oh, heaven forbid, the public might want to park there as well. I don't think there's enough room there for that. And are some of these spots being designated for the bar only in a public lot? I don't, that smacks of the town supporting the business, as you mentioned. Only your point was with the dumpsters. If the dumpsters are sited on town property, and if it's on private property, where? And I'm still not really, and you apparently don't know yet where you're going to put them, where you intend to put them. Cherry Street is a designated scenic street. Will this contribute to that in any positive way? And people have talked about people coming in there, people being there. I'm concerned with them leaving there. They're going to, you have a fairly large area available that will accommodate a lot of people. If they come out of there impaired, throwing up in the bushes, we've had a major problem with Hanto in town, with people leaving that place and causing problems. I don't want to see that across from my property, and I'm sure that the people that live there don't want to see it either. So basically, these are my concerns, and I think that the craft brewery is a great thing. It's a wonderful thing, but this is really not the place for it. This is a much more residential area, no matter what the zoning says. This is where people live and have lived for a long time. And there are a lot of people living nearby it. And I think this affects them a great deal. I can back away from it. I do live somewhat further away from it, but I don't like what it will do to my property values if you drive my tenants out.
Thank you.
Dennis Vitanides, 54 Stagecoach. I am one who's in support of the brewery for the town. I think we, as a tax base, I'd like to see the town flourish. I would. I know that there's concerns. I think there's solutions to a lot of the concerns. I think if you look at smaller towns and just towns in general that have come up in recent years, especially even new development, it's mixed use. No place thrives if you have commercial areas that are separate, completely separate from residential. And I know there's concerns that there is a neighborhood right behind, but this is downtown, and it's an eyesore. I think, I know they're going to build public housing there at some point, but it is a good bookend to the corner spot. You have a town property, and it is expanding the downtown area I think in a positive way. In response, I think, to some of the other criticisms about the brewery and Honto, this isn't a Honto. Like, you can feel it already, the care and concern that goes into here. Not that I frequent Honto, but I understand the concerns of that being in a downtown area, but that can be controlled, and that is what you guys are and the liquor commissioner and the entire town is responsible for. But again, I think the tax base, I'd like to see, every town needs a brewery. Every town that's really up and coming, and by a brewery, I don't, in a coffee shop, it's not a bar. I really don't see this as a bar. It's more of a trendy kind of, unless, the plans are completely, from what we've seen and heard, not something that is, it's different than a bar. It's a place you go to, and it's a place that you actually meet at, and I think I akin it more to Stones in a way that it's a local, it'll be a local, unique local place to go and gather and meet. And I'd like to stay in town more when I spend my money. I don't want to go to Framingham. I don't want to go driving massive distances. I'm not that far from downtown, but getting in the car and going downtown is a lot more fun than packing up and going to Hudson or going to somewhere else to spend money. And I wish it success.
Thank you.
How you doing? Mike DiPaolo, 11 Blueberry Hill Lane. I'm here to voice support for this project. I think what's really one of the wonderful things about this plan is that we have a few members of our community looking to revitalize a piece of land here and to really reinvest in Ashland. And I think that's a huge positive. You know, you look at these plans and you talk about property values and, you know, the eyesore that it is today and what we've seen and what they're trying to propose. I mean, this is exactly that revitalization and that addition to downtown area that, you know, we should be in support of. I think also going to the fact that the project proponents here, they're the neighbors. They live here. So I think a lot of the concerns, they're equally invested in addressing those. And I think they sincerely mean that. And you can tell that throughout this entire process, that they have been open to all the suggestions and the feedback. And I think that's what's great about the process. It's a fluid process. So they can't come here and answer everything. And I think if they did come here today and say, yep, we're going to do this, this, and that, I'd probably be more concerned versus working with the planning board, working with the town offices to identify where those improvements can be made and how they can work together with their neighbors and with the community to make sure it is a win-win for everyone. So I think it's something that's, you know, a great step forward for our community and really looking forward to seeing it move forward.
Thank you.
My name is Kevin Rogers from East Union Street, and I want to echo some of the things I heard here. I do support the project wholeheartedly, but I also would like to give credit to the people that are opposing and how civil you are. I moved with my family from the city, and this would have been a much more contentious and inflammatory situation there. So, thank you. I understand some of the concerns about the placement because it's so different from what's there, but I also think it's a great transitional area. We're going from municipality parking lot to something that's part residential, part commercial. I don't see how you could ask for any better to then transition into a residential neighborhood. And I also agree with some of the voices that spoke about the way things were addressed and seem to be being worked out in a fluid process. So I encourage it to continue that way. And I also like the fact that it's a shared space where people can get together and improve the community rather than just the kind of empty building against a parking lot that it is now. Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess I'll come up to the mics. This is really not my, this is really not my comfort zone, so. But I did want to come in and voice support for the project. Again, I've heard a lot of, you know, a lot of positives. Oh, I'm sorry, Patrick Gorman, 18 Tyler Lane, Ashland. I've been here now since 1996, so I really feel like I'm, you know, entrenched in the town here. So I see a project like this, and I think it does help revitalize the downtown area. I think, you know, I see the pictures shown earlier in the slideshow of the overgrown bushes and so forth, and then I see this nice rendering of what could be there, and I just see it as a positive. And I do go to some craft breweries from time to time. You know, I've been to the Craft Roots in Milford and Framingham, and to me, it is more of a gathering place. Your beer nerds, they're talking beer and, you know, not drinking to excess and falling over. It's more of a meeting type place. People gather, people talk. Place in Framingham, Exhibit A, they don't even have a TV in there. Couldn't even get the Sox score. I was like, what is this? So, you know, it's different. So to compare it to something like Honto misses the mark a little bit. Good place, good people, they're gonna live right there on the property. Feels good to me.
Thank you. Okay. All right. So, taking some copious notes here, and, I know discussions continue on your end, as we move forward, so, I guess, at this point, we should talk about next appearance. You thinking 27th?
That's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
Yeah, no, so work on that. Otherwise, it's the 13th.
Think, can be the 13th.
Yeah.
Tell us what you,
I guess could we have a clear understanding of what the board would expect from us at the next meeting?
so I think, you know,
Dumpster plan would be good.
yeah, any of the pieces kind of still being worked out in discussion with the town, I would say we wanna have a clear view in terms of where that is. And what, you know, if there's an agreement, what it is, so that could be discussed at the meeting. And then, I think once those pieces are known, you know, next steps are, you know, looking at the feeling of the board on the final kind of proposal, and then, you know, moving towards a vote of support or from there, so. But I mean, any of the pieces that are undefined at this point, just getting those to a, you know, here's our proposed plan, like this is where we wanna put the dumpster, and, you know, I think this meeting's fleshed out a lot of stuff that's been kind of, you know, unknown, so I think we're definitely moving forward and, in terms of defining what the ask is of us, so, and what your proposals are, so.
So the 27th would probably.
Okay.
Real quick, I forget, you probably told us before, what's the occupancy?
So with the number of fixtures and egresses, with the number of bathroom fixtures and egresses that we have, we can go up to 180. We see, you know, probably on a regular basis, traffic something akin to Stones in the, you know, peak times, 110, 120 neighborhood. We feel that's probably where we'll be at.
And I think, I mean, just as a kind of a general statement, you know, I think I appreciate the, you know, trying to speak to some of the concerns that the neighbors have voiced. And I would just encourage kind of continued dialogue and continued kind of, you know, working together civilly to kind of like, you know, figure out, find a way to work. So.
There's 110 peak time. Hopefully they don't all drive their own car because there's not enough parking in the whole town for that, right?
Well, you'd be
So the
you'd be
parking,
surprised.
just so you know.
So Stones, right? So we've done a lot of analysis and number crunching, right? So that, I don't know the exact size of that lot, right? But there's enough parking around town to support this.
Okay.
And what we're thinking, and what we hope, that one of the things that this project will do is encourage more shared foot traffic around town so that people will get in the habit of walking around town to patronize different businesses and not just, we're gonna drive up to wherever we wanna go. You know, I think the corner spot is a good step, you know, right step in that direction, to, you know, develop that, more of that feel of, you know, a village. You know, you go into a village and you wanna support all the independent shops in that village, and we just wanna add to that dynamic.
You might want to inquire too about the possibility of having parking restrictions on Cherry, just to see what can and can't be done, so you know, because that's an issue.
Well,
That's a big issue. I mean, it's up to the selectmen and us, but,
Well,
but just so for their own information, so that you,
we can put it into our decision that, you know, in trying, you know, presuming their support for a decision, right? We can put it into our decision to, you know, to recommend restriction of parking and to try to mitigate some of the concerns.
Now,
of the
could we
neighbors.
do something where we could designate the parking on that street as just for Cherry Street residents? Or would it just be Ashland
They'd
residents?
have to get
Can you,
permits
can you
and
break
stuff.
it down that much?
You then need
You'd have to
stickers
issue
and you need
permits and
enforcement.
or-
It's not to say it can't be done, it's just, we would need to speak to other parts of town government to say, can we support this,
and
right?
I don't know from the
That's
people that live there, if they restricted parking on that side, is that a problem for you? Like when you have family over and you
No,
have
no
people over?
restricted parking for them, just for
I know,
people who
but you're
don't live
saying
on that
that's,
street.
Make it
permit
church.
parking though, because how do you tell? But I'm saying
Well-
if they did restrict parking on that on the side of the road on Cherry Street, would that be a problem for you?
Yeah, I
Because
mean, we would like, if need be, when we have guests over, to
Be able to park there too, so it
which
would
isn't
have to
very
be-
often, but, yeah, once in a great while, we do need to park in front, but,
Not too loud.
but that's not a big concern of mine.
And just for clarity, my understanding right now is the side of Cherry Street where the brewery is located is currently no parking? I believe it's, you said,
Yes.
There's no place to
Loading
park,
only?
really.
I'm
No
sorry?
parking,
There's-
loading only. The
Yeah.
sign is in front of our
Oh,
house.
oh, okay, so the left side is effectively no parking, it's just that, I think we're just speaking about the other side of the street,
Yeah.
the side of the street is a little.
Yeah.
But just for our information, I mean, we don't want to make it worse for the neighbors by trying to make it better.
I know that,
And you guys are shut out of your own place. You
I know
decide to
that
have, you
Martha's
might have a
tenants,
family
often
picnic or
park,
get together.
Martha's tenants who live right next to me, they park in the street, because they have often guests there, so that might be a problem for them. So they would need to park in the street, I think.
You guys be willing to build a parking structure downtown?
I think Michael Herbert was gonna do that.
you wanna give them?
Michael Herbert says we don't have a parking problem in town.
Depends on where you're at and how far you want to walk.
Right, and that's part of, like,
There's a lot of people that
trying
can
to
be,
be,
it's 2 spots over and
I
it's a
know.
parking problem
I know.
because they don't want to walk 2.
well, hopefully we'll have more stuff downtown that they'll wanna kinda park
It's in there,
centrally.
that's the right direction because that's where everybody wants to go. I mean, there's a lot of parking in Ashland,
Right.
but you have to walk. So we just got to get people out.
Right, it's like educating.
The problem is in the winter,
Oh, I know.
when it's all
Well, or if you,
6 feet of
yeah.
snow,
You're-
that's when you have an issue because nobody wants to trudge through the snow for 2 blocks to get to somewhere. I know I don't.
For a good height.
So one administrative item for you guys, you need to, send a letter to Sheila.
We can handwrite it right now,
Yeah.
actually.
And request an extension, of this approval process. The clock runs 90 days, so we're getting towards the end of that initial window. I think that the initial discussion was July 26th. So how long do we extend it for, Sheila?
Well, so if we're going to the 27th for our next meeting, if all goes well, it could be signed then the following meeting or the meeting after, so I would say October 31st, an extension.
Sure. Thank you for that. Do we need to,
Thank you.
do we need to action that?
Yeah, we
Okay.
need to accept it.
Dave, can you send this to me, please?
And then you continue, we're gonna
And then
continue
continue.
to the 27th.
Yeah.
And when do we wanna put it on?
We have nothing, so they can go first if they want.
Great,
Is that
7 p.m.?
7:15.
7:15, excellent.
When is this?
So the next meeting is September 27th at 7:15 p.m. And we will hopefully be upstairs in the big room
Yeah.
and not down here.
Right,
Yes, so, can I have that? Do I hear a motion to accept the proposed extension of the review period until October 31st, 2018?
So moved.
Seconded?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Aye,
All
passes
right.
4-0.
Who did that first and second?
I motioned it. John seconded.
John. Okay. And then, do I hear a motion to continue this discussion to Thursday, September 27th at 7:15 p.m.?
So moved.
All those in favor?
I was
Aye.
trying to keep it easy for sure.
Now,
I'm trying to throw a
We
curveball.
should
so
set up a
September.
thing.
27th at
It's all
7:15.
second.
Yeah,
That way
7:15.
she doesn't get mixed up.
Also, hopefully in the board of
Let me just double
selectmen.
check, make sure that's right.
Yep.
That's what question was.
We're good? Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you
And-
very much.
Thank you. Sorry about your email. We
No
do-
problem.
Yes, I found it. Thank you
All right, cool.
very much,
Apologies.
Mr. Chase.
No problem, thank you.
Thank you all for your time.
His sister-in-law is one. They were related with.
We're gonna do some minutes. Sorry, sorry.
We're not gonna run into law
We have 15, 16 minutes, so we can do that. We'll get through some minutes. Well, do we need to do anything administrative versus
What good is it?
81?
No.
I'm sure there's no
No, I
law
just
preventing it.
kept it on there. Yeah, we're good.
Well, I think it's. Kelly, what's the difference between this place and a bar? It's a different term.
Is there gonna be any music in?
So, sorry, that we're closed on that. I apologize.
I think there is, right?
I don't, I mean, no, there's no, there's,
We do.
I-
We do.
we will clarify the next meeting, but I don't, I mean, there's no band or anything. I don't think there's any intention of that. It would be music played over speaker inside only. And design review committee has proposed, basically, vestibules on the entrances, so it would be like a sound stop. So you would go into a door, maybe an interior stop,
Second
and
door.
then it'd be a second door. So-
There's no live music.
No, that's.
Doesn't have to be loud, live to be loud.
No, it does not. It's true.
We're moving on.
Yep.
Next
I
meeting.
just need to
Minutes.
remember to do that.
Minutes.
Next meeting, yep.
All right.
I
Oh, yeah,
propose
no,
we-
we're definitely.
Yeah, you're really,
Motion.
you're hot, you're moving, man. You're just.
Jeez, I know.
I've got stuff to do still tonight.
Okay, so,
I gotta go find
do
a
we,
brewery.
do we need to, do we need to officially do anything with 81 West Union?
No,
Okay.
no.
So, so let's do minutes. Is there anything major to report at this point?
Yes, Michael Herbert will be performing at the Farmers Market Saturday at, oh, we're not live, so it doesn't matter.
But it's still on tape, but we'll be on
Oh, okay.
walkout, so. go
It's
ahead.
Saturday at the Farmers Market,
Yeah, what time?
10:30
10:30.
a.m.
What's he gonna
Your
be?
town manager, Michael Herbert,
What is
will be playing with the Dale Show.
Wow, oh,
He'll be
we have
playing
the
guitar.
Dale show this
Yeah,
Saturday.
yes.
Wow.
That's right. It's
I know
gonna be
where-
a special treat.
I know where I'll be.
You're there, I've
Front
seen you a
center.
few times.
Yeah, I'll come,
Yeah.
check that out. All right, any other announcements, gentlemen?
No.
Okay, so let's do minutes. They're
I
in the
vote that
binder.
we approve.
They should be in the letter
All
at
in
the front
favor?
on the appropriate number, 7, 8, or 9.
So which one are we gonna do first? We, not May 17th, right? We've already done that, right?
Yeah, July 12th? All right. It should be, it's in there.
Sorry.
I'm gonna keep one of these books, here we go.
This is another one, July 12th, another one you were in charge of.
Man,
Wow. You have to ask for a pay raise.
from 0 to 0.
Double it, they could double it, triple it. Go home, tell your family, I just tripled my pay.
Okay.
Was I the one that asked about the grant funding? Zero. 44.
Which page?
2. I don't recall, I may, recall.
Phil, was that you?
What? Asked about
Page
funding
2 of
grants
5,
for-
row 44. I thought it was.
Maybe that's Phil's.
I think I
that's
remember
Phil's
it being you, as a matter of
Yeah.
fact, it was you.
Well, I don't remember doing
All
that.
right.
'Cause usually I
You
just- I
mentioned,
just make
you mentioned the
motions.
grants you got,
Yeah.
you got for
Except for
the
tonight,
solar
I'm the only one
thing.
talking. I don't know.
You did a good job.
No, you're on fire.
Hopefully it has to take a turn.
So, that was Mr. Williams?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
I take credit, no matter what.
Because you talked about the grants you got for the
Yeah.
solar.
I do make a lot of motions,
Constantly in motion.
Yep. Well, I am glad that they're just going to the the pylons instead of going corn into the ground with the solar.
Yeah,
It's better all the way around.
it is.
So, in terms of the July 12th minutes, are there any other changes or proposed edits?
Not that I could see.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the July 12th, 2018 minutes as amended.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We need a second.
Second.
Thank you.
All right.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 4-0. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Remember, we are being filmed. It's
All right.
it's
I'm
not
gonna
live,
go.
but we
Since
are
we're
being
getting
filmed,
close,
so
I'm
we
going
have to
up
still.
unlock the front door.
So we're gonna do
Attention.
July 26th and then we're good?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's a little close.
Okay. So on this one, I wasn't here, guys, so you gotta. if there's anything-
Fill you in.
Well, no.
One week you're in charge, next one you're absent. You know,
All I'm saying is,
We have to kind of,
I can't check the accuracy here, you know? Counting on you,
looks
Dale.
like I made most of the motions, that sounds about right.
I'd like to make that one to end it.
Okay, I'll let you.
Tonight's your night.
Okay, you got it. I'm down, as long as I get the second.
So,
Okay.
you're good?
Yeah. I'll make a motion to approve the planning board meeting minutes from July 26, 2018.
No changes?
Nope.
No, can I just say that's the second minutes that Josh has done with no changes?
Well, there we
It's
go.
pretty good.
Is there a second?
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
3, I'll abstain, 'cause I have abstention.
All right, who's second? Phil? No,
I
Josh.
seconded.
You, but you're abstaining from the
Okay,
vote?
so then let's redo that vote. I can vote even though I wasn't
I
there.
make a
Yeah,
motion
you
that we
actually can.
approve the minutes of
July 26th.
July 26, 2018 as they are.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 4-0. John, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting at 9:54 p.m.
I will second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you and good night.